Hi, welcome to Culture Shot. This week I want to talk about war. Specifically, I want to talk about the war that HR should be waging, the battles that HR should be willing to engage in to protect people, employees, team members, members of the organization at the time that the organization has decided that it's going to start cutting costs. There is an organization that comes to mind at the moment, one that I know quite well, that has decided to start going through this lately, and it irritates me. I think it's going to end badly for them, and I wish they weren't doing it. But the reason, I mean, I could have I could go on for hours and hours about the way in which I see so many company leaders, so many leaders of organizations failing in their responsibility to run the organization lean, to look after the numbers and make sure that, you know, that when the lean times come around, that there's not suddenly this fat organization that needs to start cutting costs. But that's a conversation for another day. The reality is it happens, and it could be happening to you right now. But here's the problem. The problem is that the way in which you'll remove people, the way in which the bean counters will view people as expendable or not, will probably be based on their performance review last year, or maybe over the last 2 years. Have they been any good? Did they make their numbers, etc.? They're not looking at things from a cultural point of view. They're not looking at whether or not people actually fit the team beautifully, whether they're an important part of the glue that binds people together, whether they have a significant impact in that way. They're not looking at that. But they are ultimately going to create a challenge for the organization precisely because of that if they ignore it. In other words, you lose somebody who may not be operationally the very best, but they're really important to the team, and there's so many other benefits that they bring. Those things don't necessarily reflect on paper. They don't have that kind of information because it doesn't show up in the spreadsheet, and so those people go, and an entire department is, the morale is wiped out, the team dynamic has changed forever, the performance enhancements that you hope to get by being able to cut costs never turn up, and ultimately you end up weaker for it. Only HR has that kind of information. These are the battles that we should be willing to wage. We should be willing to go to war and say, no, hold on a second. These are not the metrics you're going to use to get rid of people. It doesn't make any sense. Not if we're going to have a strong culture full of high-performing people afterwards. It's not just about performance. It's not just about the numbers. If we don't have those battles, if we don't wage that war, then nobody will. It all comes down to us. Unfortunately, I think where we're going with this particular organization, and with so many, is that a number of people are going to be removed. The people who are left are going to wonder why it is that those people were removed, and how soon it will be before they are too. It's going to affect their performance, and so, you know, I think they're getting themselves into a horrible cycle at the moment, which I hope they'll be able to lift themselves out of. If you are going to go through this, if this is inevitable, then heads are going to go, heads are going to be cut, the number of people are going to be it's going to be reduced, and you're going to end up with survivors, if you like, a group of people left in the organization afterwards who are feeling vulnerable and so on. I mean, I would advise you, your only job, the biggest job you've got, the only job you've got, is to communicate the hell out of this. Make sure it's absolutely clear why it is that those people were left behind, were asked to leave. Make sure it's absolutely clear why those people who are still there were asked to remain, and how it is that you hope the organization will improve as a result of them being there. You know, if we don't have those sorts of conversations, then I don't quite know how to rise above it. I think regardless, it's a challenge. I think we tend to measure people, judge people as expendable or not based on performance metrics, which at the end of the day are only a small part of the puzzle. These are things we get to work with while we still have those people on our teams. But the moment we start removing them, we really have to question what the impact is. This is a job for HR. Nobody else is going to do it. And I think it's a critically important one. That's my thought for this week. I hope you have a great week.